Hello and welcome to this episode of Clash of Rams. This week we're bringing it a little bit more local and going to be talking about the student body here at Colorado State University, ASCSU. For that we have Juan of the Conservative Interest Group, Daniela Pineda Soracá, she was the president of ASCSU last year, and Allec, the opinion editor of the Rocky Mountain Collegian. So first off, I just want to get all of your guys' opinions on ASCSU. Just what do you think of it? What is it going on like this year?
Just as a whole, this year has been kind of crazy because we have been dealing with this whole impeachment debacle with our current president, Josh Silva. But personally, I think that ASCSU is a really great experience for students here at Colorado State University. It gives us a taste of politics and what it's like to be in government at a smaller level than a state or local level. And I think it's a really excellent, microcosm of what democracy is, you could say.
And Juan?
It's an absolute waste of time. I honestly think these kids have been watching too much House of Cards.
Dang.
Since I was in there, 14 student senators, actually it was 10 student senators faced impeachment for being conservative. I know the year before there was impeachments. Now there's an impeachment now. It's impeachment.
I did forget to mention Juan was a senator in ASCSU 2 years ago.
Yes.
And Daniela, what are your thoughts on ASCSU as the former president of it?
All right, you'll have to stop me if I start talking too much. But, tonight actually I was asked by a former advisor if I regret the experience, and by no means do I regret it. It was an amazing experience. It definitely exposed me just like to the institutional mechanisms, I think, in higher education, especially public higher education, and not every student gets to do that. And I really did have a voice at the table when it came to being at those Board of Governor meetings, which people don't even know what they are or that they exist.
And that's a big issue,
Absolutely.
ASCSU is this big thing here at Colorado State University, and sometimes I don't even know if people really understand what it's there for or what our ASCSU senators do.
Absolutely. But then I can't say that that positive experience probably resonated among the peers last year when I was president, or maybe even this year. It's definitely frustrating when everyone comes in at such different levels. There are people that have been there for the entire time that they've been here at Colorado State University, but then there's people like myself. It was my first year. I had no idea what to expect. But at the end of the day, you have to realize you're a student at that point. You're not a professional politician, and people maybe expect a lot out of you. And I think it is within reason, especially if you run for an elected position. But a lot of the supporting roles within it, the work that they do, executive members, assistants, associate senators, I feel like their work and their reason for being there to develop as young members, it completely gets shadowed by so much internal drama. And that's really one thing I really hated about my time there, but at the same time it was necessary for growth. And I think with an organization with such high turnover every year, it's impossible to keep continuity standards the same.
You had a very good year.
Speaking of drama that's in ASCSU, as of today, we are entering the 10th week of of President Josh Silva being impeached, as the impeachment process was begun on the first Senate session of the year. And Juan, was it last week or 2 weeks ago that you actually went to the Senate and spoke in front of them and basically just told them off?
I think it was week 8.
Was it week 8?
I
So
went
2
in
weeks
there
ago?
and told them that they're wasting time. All the energy that they've placed into this impeachment, they could have used it for something productive. They got 19 signatures on an impeachment bill. They're running around whipping votes for it, even intimidating people. It's wasting time. You could be doing so much more. You could be at city council, talking to your local government, doing some influence. I know they're fighting for U+2, but just think about how much more they could have done if they would have used that political capital elsewhere.
And Juan, also I agree with you on some of those points, and I think that ASCSU is really awesome. Like I said before, I think it's a great way for students to, get a taste of politics and get a taste of government. But I think it's more of an issue that there's been so much communication within the leadership of ASCSU, and there's been so much internal drama and so many moving parts, and it's so confusing like just the communication that they've had with the media and the communication that they've had internally, and then projecting that into the student body. They have no idea what's going on. I mean, if it takes me extensive research to really even understand what is going on with this whole impeachment, the general student is not even going to have any idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And right now we actually there is a $10,000 study that is in the works in ASCSU, and they're working on seeing if that's going to go through or not. On the U+2 initiative, yes. And students have no idea. I didn't have any idea that that was going on because this whole impeachment thing has just taken precedence. So
You're right. They could definitely be communicating with the press better as well. I know that only the proponents of the impeachment weren't talking to the press at all. It took them a while to get even quotes from what I understand. Well,
Yeah,
Josh Silva and his team were
closing
open.
up on the people who are trying to report on it, not really talking.
Yeah, they weren't talking. not really
Last
cooperating.
week we sent a or a few weeks ago we sent a CTV reporter, and when she walked in with her camera, they just shut up.
Scrambled.
yeah, we had an issue with our editor-in-chief was, and this was a little bit of a difficult situation as well. She was actually shut out of a meeting. They said that there was personal information. Yeah, you were there. Being disclosed, and we had this whole issue with that. But there's just been a lot of issues with communication, I think, that are really affecting the student body and our information that we get from ASCSU.
To build on that, Danny, what do you think about the fact that there are 19 senators on an impeachment bill that students don't know about? Like, I don't know who these senators are. I know they said their names on the record, but they're not written on the record. It just says 19 senators.
That's right.
And I thought I elected these students to represent me. I want to know how they're voting. What do you think about that from someone that was...
Yeah, I think that is a lack of transparency. Yeah, I mean, like right now I'm the average student, I guess you could say, and I feel very left out, even though I still have, really good relationships and whatnot with ASCSU members. And I understand that there's human resources related documents and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, I agree with you. If that person was either elected, in the general election or appointed by a college council, college councils, that's a lot of members that say, yes, we entrust you in informing and, and being transparent, to our, not only our college, but representing, the university as a whole. And I don't think that if that happened on the national scale, that would be acceptable. It's just, I don't think that that's very professional. I understand there are some limitations to it, but if these things are being talked about publicly within the body, then they should easily be able to be accessible and reportable by not only student media staff, but, if sometimes, I don't know if ASCSU makes it to this level, but if the Colorado wanted to report on it or something like that, I feel like lack of transparency.
Is the lack of transparency something that you think is just for this year, or is that something you guys experienced in the previous years? I know they attempted to impeach you, Juan, when you were
How
many attempts? Yeah.
I'm 3-0 undefeated with impeachments in student government.
What a record.
It's a really nice record. I think Josh might beat me. I think Josh might be like 5-0. I think it's like the 4th or 5th impeachment. And I'm really proud of him because some of these impeachments they've had to pull because there wasn't enough evidence or they just weren't appropriate. And if it's something that can't be shared with the public, then let the OEO office handle it, and they'll come to justice, right? Then focus on what you're supposed to do, which is serving the students, not spending.
And also another big point here is that impeachment is like one of the last resorts that you can take. There are other acts of punishment that ASCSU could go through to, slap Silva on the wrist and say, don't do this again. But this is a third impeachment and there's been 3 different petitions made with 3 different, completely separate instances that they are impeaching Silva on.
There's 2 types of impeachments I've seen in ASCSU. One where an individual does something wrong and needs to be impeached for it, and the other when there's an individual people don't like, so they'll go on this witch hunt to find information and try to drag him out. When Danny was elected, they tried to disqualify her election. I remember this. They went to appeal it with judicial reviews and everything. It was wrong. And I've seen these impeachments. I've seen the right kind, when an individual has been removed for the right reasons. He did something wrong and he deserved to get out. And then I've seen, these witch hunts. They don't go anywhere. They just waste time. I've seen 3 of them myself.
Well, and I'm not going to speak on the evidence here. I haven't seen most of the evidence. And so I do commend those members who are wanting to impeach Silva for, going through this democratic process and wanting to do this. But
to have accountability.
Yeah, just to have accountability.
I get that part.
Yes.
Yes. But when it becomes,
tradition.
No, when there are just so many angles of impeachment, like how is the general student body not going to think that there is this group just against Josh Silva? It's inevitable to think that, right? It's at every angle, and you know, I can't obviously speak on every single little detail, everything that's under investigation, as well, because I don't know every single again point. But I don't know. It seems like if folks can't work within the body, whether they're from different branches, whether they're from different political ideologies, which is fine. Like, there's no way that your own personal, and Juan's a perfect example, there's no way that your personal ideology is not going to seep through in one way or another.
There just
right?
needs to be compromise on some
Exactly.
form.
But when folks can't even talk to each other, like I said, across branches, or within just like the leadership positions, and to be open and honest, well, then there's something to address there too. Perhaps you know, the leaders of the different branches, especially executive and the legislative, need to be synchronizing more. Maybe that didn't happen in the way that they were expecting to, and perhaps it's because of the new Speaker of the Senate position, which is it changes the dynamics of everything, and so there's a lot of different components that could be going into this.
Moving parts.
But at the end of the day, it's a lack of communication among leadership, and then I'd also like to add the point, and I don't know if you can speak to this one, but for instance, executive members are supposed to be there as salaried members who work there, have an extensive amount of office hours, equivalent from anywhere from 15 to, I worked 40 plus sometimes. Wow. And then Senate happens once a week, Wednesday. So I kind of heard this funny thing, like Monday, the agenda comes out, and people are like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Tuesday, everyone gets prepared for Wednesday. Senate happens, Thursday, everyone's mad at each other, and Friday, everyone just like so burnt out. So it's this cycle of just unproductiveness sometimes, or just personal, I don't even know how to put it. I don't know if you can add it. From your point as a senator, like, how is that dynamic between like communicating with executive and...
I had success once communicating with executive, and it was actually with Jason. We're friends now. I know we were
former president,
and him and I clashed a lot. But once there was this impeachment for the speaker, Peter James Steele, that was going to come to the floor, and the conservative interest group sat down with the proponents of the impeachment. We talked about it, and then the impeachment never hit the floor because we found another solution. So that's great. It was very effective, but we've had situations
you know, and I just have to be the devil's advocate here.
Sure.
Just the fact that we've been able to have these impeachments and people have been able to, you know, experiment with this governing body is incredible, I think, to me. And the fact that we were able to sit here and commentate on this is really awesome. And I hope that, you know, our commentary sparks something within the student body to say, hey, there's something going on internally with ASCSU. And no matter what side you're on, whether you believe that Josh Silva should be impeached or whether you believe that, you know, he should still be our sitting president, there is a communication issue happening from all sides within ASCSU. And I hope that this starts dialogue within the larger student body, that students are getting more involved and wanting to hear more on ASCSU.
And I think that's a great way to end this episode. Well, Rams, thank you for tuning into this episode of Clash of Rams. We'll be back in hopefully 2 weeks. It's been 3 weeks since the last one, but we'll try to fix that this time.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Thank you very much, Madam President.
Yeah.